Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Reimagining Infertility, the July session of AshaUSA's Breaking the Silence 2021 speaker series. My name is Saili Amrapurkar. I'm the Executive Director of AshaUSA. Our mission is to foster health and harmony in the South Asian community. There are many taboo topics that we as a community shy away from or don't know how to talk about. One such topic is that of infertility. It may be more common medical condition than you think it to be. Do you know that 1 in 8 couples experience infertility and the painful challenges associated with it? In South Asian communities, children are highly desired and children are seen as an essential for normal adult existence. As a result, infertility or challenges in conceiving a baby is a highly stigmatized topic. Today, we are grateful to have three wonderful couples with us today who have graciously offered to tell us their stories. Thank you all for being here. And I'm going to start by introducing our guests. Manjushri Patil is the founder director of Atman Academy, a specialized instruction inclusive school for children with diverse learning needs that has been ranked among the top 10 schools nationally in India for 4 consecutive years. She's a two-time TEDx speaker, TEDx performer, and a receiver of ADA Anniversary Fellowship on Inclusive Education. With over 3 decades of experience in the field of education, she's also a trained Hindustani classical vocalist. So, welcome, Manjushri. Prasad Patil is a mechanical engineer with an MBA from IIM Bangalore, and he runs an IT and security consultancy company called MIPL. He's based in Mumbai. He's also a founder trustee of Atman Educational Society and Security Consultants Association. Welcome, Prasad. Divya Maya, born and raised in Bangalore, now living in Minnesota for the past 10 years. She works as digital product manager at Best Buy and co founder and executive director of SATH, South Asian Arts and Theatre House, which is a non-profit that connects people in Minnesota and breaks cultural barriers through medium of performing arts. Welcome, Divya. Madhu, originally from Bangalore, Madhu has been in Minnesota for a little over 14 years. He works as a technical program manager with Infosys, having Ameriprise Financial as the client. He is on the board of director of SATH, again, South Asian Arts and Theatre House. He is also a theatrical director, actor, and improviser, and has been a part of several theater productions and improv groups in Minnesota. We also have with us Nandini and Sridhar. Nandini and Sridhar have been living in Minnesota for last 14 years, and they are both born and brought up in the southern part of India. They are IT consultants and live in Twin Cities with their 6-year-old son. So we have such a great panel here. Thank you all. Welcome. And really, I can't thank you enough for being here today to share your personal stories. So, we are going to start by, if you can start by telling us a little bit about yourself and when was it that you realized that you are dealing with infertility issues? So, whoever wants to go first can start.
I can go. This is Sridhar. So, as I mentioned, like Nandini and myself, we knew each other for a long time before we got married. So when we got married, having a child was not necessarily on top of our mind. We were more focused on our career and thinking that like instead of having a child, we should maybe see the world, do things which would be more difficult when we have a child kind of attitude at that point. And so it was mid 30s when we started thinking of having a child. And after a couple of years, we are trying, we decided to go see a doctor. And that's when we always assumed that both of us are healthy, both of us are fit. So we shouldn't be having any problem was the misconception that we had. But when we went to see the doctor, we found out that yes, we medically, like, we have a situation and a condition because of which we need some help, medical help, in order for us to conceive. So that's how we found out.
I think we have very similar stories too. I I think personally for me, I've never imagined of having my own biological child. So which is why I feel like Madhu and I have never discussed that, didn't discuss it for a very long time.
Yeah.
And like Sridhar said, like we've also not had that as in the top of our minds ever in our relationship process, I feel like. And it did come at a later stage. I think maybe we'll touch upon this a little later, but I think both of us we had discussed it even when we were dating, that we always wanted to adopt a child. And when that didn't become an option for us is when we even thought about, maybe we should have our own child, right? And then when we started trying, we went through a series of like miscarriages. And at that time, our OB-GYN, she said that until you have 3 miscarriages, that's when we can't even figure out like if it's really infertility related issue or not. So we had to go through that process over like a couple of years to, almost kind of like prove that we're candidates for infertility.
Yeah. It's been, I think, probably to answer the question, it's been about 6-7 years since we have been dealing with this.
Before Manju and Prasad step in here, I just wanted to add. So what Divya mentioned about biological child and adoption, like our situation was very similar right from high school. One of my neighbors when I was in high school had adopted a kid. And since then, I always had that in mind. So whether we have a biological kid or not, adoption was always in the plans for us, in our minds. But being in US, as Divya mentioned, like because of visa considerations and all of that, that is not an option until we become a citizen. So part of the whole process was very similar to what Divya mentioned, wherein, we have to wait until we get citizenship before even we can start our adoption process. So let us try. And that's when we figured out. And I think that becomes even more difficult because of the fact that, yes, there was an option which we were ready to take, which was not an option because of, visa or red tape or whatever.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You go, Manju. So you talked about knowing each other for 25 years, Sridhar, you and Nandini. Manju and I know each other for 30 years. So we, since 1999, so we dated for about 4 years before we got married. We got married pretty early in terms of an average age of marriage. So I was 24, she was 23. Our family jokes that it was kind of a child marriage. but yeah. So and I think by the time we were 27, 28, probably we realized that there are issues, medical issues that we have to cater to, and maybe after about 3 to 4 years after that, there was a series of treatments, and it was a painful period for both of us, especially Manju. I think that is what eventually happens in this entire treatment thing, that it's the female gender which really suffers in the entire process. However, I mean, we will definitely talk about it a little later in the program, but in our own family, I think there have been maybe 5 or 6 immediate family. We've had 5 or 6 couples who, for various reasons, have adopted. So, and also Manju and I, coming from the backgrounds that we do, we also always wanted to adopt. So we have a son, who was a gift, actually, born out of infertility. So that's the way to put it. So yeah, so Manju, you want to add anything?
To further answer your question as to how and when did you, so like Prasad said, we went through a series of searches, initial searches, and trust me, the day I was with my doctor and she was probing me and finding out, and she said, this was my the doctor who does the sonography, and she said, she looked at this thing, she looked at the screen and she said, okay. I said, what happened? She said, you know what? You have endometriosis. I said, what is that? She gave me a little brief. She said, that's why you're not conceiving. I said, yay, good. So she was so startled with that reaction of mine. She said, what are you saying good for? I said, at least now I know why I'm not conceiving. You're just andhere mein teer, you're just trying to figure out what's happening. Why the hell aren't you conceiving? Like Sridhar very rightly said, you think you are a healthy couple or whatever else. But at least now I knew, okay, I now know that is the reason. Then I went in, that time there was no internet. I'm talking about very, very long back. There was no rampant internet all over. So then I used to go to British Council Library in Mumbai, and I used to go and sit there and I used to read and I used to find out what endometriosis is all about. And the first realization ki, okay, Baba, there is a chance that I may not ever conceive, came at that point.
So, so thank you so much. And as you all told your stories, I realized that everybody comes to that realization from different places, right? And there are different reasons why people want or don't want to have kids in the first place. So when, let's say, so you finally thought that, or you finally wish that, okay, now is the time to have a child, or we would like to conceive. And when you came across these issues, what were some of the treatments, or what were some of the suggestions that were given to you, either by medical doctors or your friends or family members, or you yourself as a couple thought of some things that you could do?
So if I can go for
can
that.
Yeah.
Good.
So one of the things that I mentioned was the pain that one goes through during this entire treatment process. And unfortunately, in the medical profession, they don't give a clear-cut answer. There is hope is always good, but one has to have a cutoff in terms of hope, and one has to be brave enough to tell a patient that don't do this, don't go through this entire exercise. Because there are multiple injections. You've got to visit doctors we used to visit doctors in Mumbai, Pune, I don't know, multiple cities. And we've consulted 4 or 5 different doctors, one doctor leading to another, some family member referring another doctor. Couple of 3 or 4 times for surgeries, which is not related only to infertility, but also to endometriosis that Manju mentioned. So I think that had to be taken care of anyway. But I think at some point of time, doctors must tell patients that stop this. And there are other ways of having getting a child into a family, which is basically adoption. Doctors need to be pro-adoption. I think that's something that we must try and inculcate in the medical fraternity, because Sridhar mentioned earlier that there are these IVF clinics, and in India, unfortunately, it has become a mushrooming business. They are advertising IVF clinics like anything. And although it might be good for the medical fraternity and science and research and development in that field, there is a lot of experimentation that is still happening, and it is at the cost of very, very productive years in your life. Typically, couples who try and get into treatment for infertility, they are between 25 and 35. And if you're losing 2 or 3 years as well, 2-3 years within that 10-year period, these are productive years, fruitful years in terms of anything else that you want to do. So I think there has to be a clear message which a medical practitioner can give to trying couples, that this is not going to happen. I think in our case, that happened a little later than if I were to go back, I wouldn't be doing anything that we did in terms of the treatment that we went through. And the agonizing, it's not only the medical pain, it's the agony and the constant frustration and just going here and there. there's no family pressure. We come from a fairly progressive family, and as I mentioned, there are several cases within the family. But it's just that hope, that something might come up, and someone might do something for us. Something good might happen. So that has to be cut off at some point in time.
Yeah. And Divya, Madhu, Sridhar, if I'm correct, you got treatment in US, right? So do you think there's any difference in how your experience was in US compared to what Prasad and Manjushri are talking about in India?
So, go ahead, Divya.
No, go ahead.
So we underwent treatment in US and multiple places in India. So I can probably give our perception on that, I would say. So the main difference is there is a little more accountability in US as compared to in India. I would just say a little more, not a lot more, because at the end of it, as Prasad mentioned, it is not an actual science. There is no way that they can, even the doctors can predict or tell you that, hey, we are doing this, so this is what is going to happen. So, so that way, I would say there's a little more accountability in US, but and also the facilities are a lot more cleaner, and it's less crowded and all that stuff. So that way it is experience is a little better. Overall, the experience as such is painful, very painful, as Prasad mentioned, especially for women. They physically, the number of injections they have to go through, and because of all those hormonal procedures, it kind of emotionally drains them. And so it's very, very painful overall. But given that situation, it is a little more better in US as compared to in India. In India, what we have experienced within India, like we have experienced in multiple cities, and it's crowded, and it's truly a mushrooming business, and accountability is a lot lesser, and a lot of times I even question if they are doing the procedure right and things like that. And again, it is just based on my experience or our experience. So yes, I mean, emotionally it's draining, it is painful. And in US, at least, like, it seems like you still maintain some dignity in going through all of that. In India, sometimes, at least our experience again, is sometimes it goes even beyond that. Like sometimes it feels like, oh my God, like why are we going through this, is how we felt.
But I think the biggest consideration is cost as well. Here is super expensive. So it is like, I mean, affordability is a big thing because most of the insurance don't cover it here. Unfortunately, US companies, they're not mandated to cover for fertility treatment because it's more of a privilege to have a child, unlike European countries. So if you end up in an employer that has an insurance that doesn't cover, I mean, it's only so much you can do. So, but in India, it's very cost effective. So relatively,
as compared to if you are earning here, and if you want to get the treatment done in India, then it's relatively much more cost effective, especially when you have to do those procedures again and again and again. So that's where, like, after trying a few times here, we decided, let us check in India how our luck is, kind of stuff, and that's how. So.
Wow.
I don't think that, sorry,
go ahead, Divya. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to add to what Sridhar said. We don't have a comparison. We've only tried it in US. And like Nandini mentioned, it is not just physically and emotionally draining, it's financially draining. And which is why I feel like we have to consider whether it's even worth it to go through all this trouble to try again and again. Another thing is we went through it during COVID, so we really didn't get that much support from any of our clinics here. And I think personally think the whole thing is a nightmare experience.
And there was even though it was in the US, there was a lot of admin aspect to it, like, making multiple phone calls, getting pre-authorizations from your insurances, like calling the different pharmacy because these medications are not available in regular pharmacies. So we had to go through quite a bit of jump through those hoops before actually even thinking about the treatment or getting the treatment, which in itself was painful and exhausting.
Yeah, it just adds to the stress. You're supposed to be stress-free during this time, and it adds way more to your stress because it's also time sensitive. All these medications, you really need to get it at this and take it at this certain point in time. And every single day you're calling your pharmacy, you're calling your doctor, you're calling your insurance. It's just
Yeah, I can sense the frustration in your voice, like all the things, and it's something very not very simple, and that yeah, Manjushri, you're saying something.
I wanted to add two aspects, and one of which is a fun aspect of it. One is that going through these motions, you are literally, like Prasad very rightly said, we are completely at the mercy of the doctors. And at one point of time, I was suddenly one of the doctors diagnosed me as, so I was carrying for this like 1 month, so to say, and it wouldn't lodge itself on the endometrium, which is where my problem is. And the doctor went, your endometrium lining is very thin. So he went and did a series of tests. And within a month, I had started taking treatment for TB. And I'm like, what the hell is happening here? Prasad was so put off. He said, forget it. Let's just stop this whole business because we were just going on a round robin hunt. And that was the last we did, 2004. It was, we dropped everything like a hot brick. He said, I'm not putting you through any more of this shit. We just put it all down. And on his birthday on 26th May, we put in our papers for adoption. 2004 end, 17 years ago, Anvay came home. And that was it. We just didn't look back after that. So that was like it. We said we're just going to go into one. It's a loop. It just goes on and on and on. And you don't know where you are headed. It's like a bottomless pit. But on the fun side, like you said, what are the suggestions? People give you all kinds of obnoxious suggestions, you know. Somebody tells me in India, so I've had all kinds of, you have this, you have that. But I'll give you one of the most obnoxious suggestions somebody gave me. She said, there are these particular flowers. You should go and pluck them at 4 o'clock in the morning. There should be buds and you should gobble them up with hot water and you will conceive. Thank you, but I'm not getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to pluck any flowers and gobble them up now and hope that I'm going to conceive. So I've had all kinds of, that too you don't ask. Everybody has something to tell you as to how you
I put up that post on Facebook. I put that post on Facebook and people sent me personal messages to give me some of these obnoxious like remedies, which was hilarious. We laughed at it for days.
Yeah. Acupuncture. So
I mean, we know people here, so we can't like really tell what it was. So it's
from acupuncture to that some specific kind of honey.
Juice. I mean, I used to use that green juice. What is that? It's the thing that you have, like the green juice. It has like a lot more hormonal thing. Oh my God, this hormone and like all the other things that they say that you do to balance your hormone. It's just crazy. I think you just get sucked into so many things because you're like, you want to do anything to make it work, right?
Yeah. Correct. And it's like a fine line of sharing and not sharing, because when you share, you don't want to hear any of
and you know what? You come to a very zen moment after a point of time that you begin to realize that look, people are well-meaning. You know, they just want you to experience the joy of motherhood and fatherhood, and they want you to be helped. So they want to give that help to you, and they hope that they are the people who might have caused it to happen for you. So you are well-meaning, and so you don't say anything back to them. Okay, thank you. I'll definitely, pakka, sure. Yes.
I think women go through this more in terms of receiving advice, because women have the tendency to advise other women. I don't think men go. No.
I disagree with that. I don't think it's about women wanting to advise. I just feel like men don't speak about it often. So
probably that is also true.
Advice
that is also true. Yeah. No, but you know, elderly people within the family have this tendency to pass on their bits of advice, and that goes on. But as Manju said, I think you have to take it in the right spirit and just move on. Yeah. You know, and in this entire process, somehow people have to understand, families have to understand, society has to understand that the only two people who can take or make a decision regarding having a child or not is the couple. No one else in the family or no one else in the society has any business to look into that aspect. Whether you want to have a child, how you want to have a child, is a decision that that should be done only by the couple and together. There is this also the angle of women being subjected to kind of tensions within the family because they can't bear a child. That must stop. That we are a progressive society now everywhere, and that somehow probably society organizations such as yours, and thank you for doing this actually. There should be more such sessions like this. But considering the fact, sorry, just give me a couple of minutes more. Considering the fact that 1 out of 6 couples experience this, I'm surprised that when couples get married, there is no advice which is being given. There has to be some kind of an advice that, going ahead 3 years down the line, 4 years down the line, you're going to experience this. And what does one do after that?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there has to be that kind of, when you're flying nowadays, you're getting COVID advice everywhere. When you're getting married, please start giving this kind of an advice that this is a possibility in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, all of us, all 6 of us are well educated and well-to-do, but look at societal sections where they don't have access to this kind of knowledge. They are also going through this. It's not a situation that afflicts only a certain section of society; it afflicts everybody.
Yes,
So I think that societal advice and proper beliefs and attitudes are necessary.
Yeah, you point to a number of important things here, Prasad. So yeah, definitely that was my question. That, as you pointed out, that the couple centered ness of this issue in our society, especially in our South Asian community, is sort of subject to social scrutiny, right? Everybody has a say. People judge, people give advice, people suggest, and then and as you rightly pointed out, everybody goes through this, but not everybody has the resources, access to information, access to medical care, and so on and so forth. And then, irrespective of the class, our society has a certain idea about what it means to be a happily married couple or a family, and expectation of child starts right when a couple gets married. The first ashirwad they are given is, may you have kids, right? Especially may you have boys. So that's where we come from. And so I was going to say, all 3 of you, we are all we belong to that progressive section of society where we are open to thinking of these issues, talking about these issues, and being open minded. But there's this majority of and I know many people, again, it doesn't have to do whether they are educated, whether they have resources or money. It's the mindset. And so that's what we are fighting against more than anything else. So given that, now here's the question for the men in the group. And we just said that, both men and women face this, and men do not escape that stigma of infertility either. However, there's this silence around male infertility. And as Prasad, you pointed out, generally the blame traditionally has been put on women. And so whether it's the treatment, the women are asked to go in first and get treatment or find out what's wrong, assuming that she's the person who has problem, things like that. So can you, Madhu, Sridhar, and Prasad, talk about your thoughts and feelings as you have went through this, or what are your opinions?
I can go. I think, I mean, you rightly said it is men do not feel comfortable opening up, number one. And also, I think that goes as a two-way street, right? Like, because you don't hear that much often from men talking about infertility. People who reach out as well do not reach out to the men, which I think is important, that the two-way street is open, that men start talking about and people start reaching out to them too. Because it does emotionally and mentally, may not be as much physically, right? But still emotionally and mentally does affect men too. And the things that the family pressure, even though it might be on your female partner, but still the men feel that family pressure is, that plays in the relationship as well. There are sour moments in the relationship just because of the pressure that the couple is going to, and that equally affects the men. And so I have felt, uh, and I used to do a lot of research about infertility and what are the treatments available on the internet. And I used to come across blogs about male infertility written by by their female partners, telling that, this is what my husband or like partner tried for these many years, and this is what worked for him. And it's surprising that even those blogs were written by women who spoke about the men's infertility aspect.
I mean, it's totally deep rooted in patriarchy. I feel like
Absolutely.
It's just, and second thing is, I think when we open up about it, I feel like a lot of people were more like concerned, and they had very nice things to say to me. I think maybe a couple people asked you how you were doing, and
I mean, again, I think it goes as a two-way street. I think it should be a conscious effort.
And they were also women who asked you. They were
that is true.
not one.
Yeah, but it should be a conscious effort from both sides. I mean, I'm guilty as well. Like I do not put myself away from this issue. I'm a part of it.
Yeah, you don't talk about it.
Yes, and I'm trying to get better with it.
Yeah. So another factor that one has to consider is the work, right? I mean, fortunately, we were in a situation. I and Manju were in a situation where we didn't have to report to work. I've been on my own since the last 20 years, and even when we were undertaking this treatment, we had already started our business. So I didn't have a situation where I had to report to a workplace at 9 o'clock. But there are couples who are going through this in a work kind of situation where, so added to this stress is also the stress that the work has to continue. And I think that's something that weighs on the mind constantly, adds to the stress. So I can understand, I can sympathize with people who doing that and who have to report to workplace, at the same time also worry about their own treatment, the hers or his own treatment. But coming to your moot question, Saili, is in terms of communication, and I think men need to definitely open up about issues pertaining to this. Maybe there could be support groups which are formed, and where these kind of discussions should be held. But apart from that, I think what the communication that is most important again is the communication between the couples, between the husband and the wife. And I think if that communication is good and sound, and the couple as a unit knows where they're going, it's okay.
So I want to break down this question into two parts. One is male infertility and communication and discussion around it, and the second is what do men go through during all this process, whether as a couple, if you are facing infertility, whether it is because of whoever has the medical issue, or both of us have the medical issue, what do men goes to? I just wanted to say the word, like mother mentioned, mard ko bhi dard hota hai. It's like so the things that I had to kind of go through during all of this process, I'm very sure a lot of men go to. First thing is, when women have to go through all these procedures, processes, and all that stuff, the sense of helplessness as to there is nothing that you can do to help other than hope. And sometimes, as Prasad mentioned, a lot of times you are like, I don't want you to go through any of this. But you wonder, is that supportive or is it hurting? You don't know. You're questioning yourself as to at what point is it being supportive and at what point it is being unreasonable. Because if the spouse wants to experience the feeling of motherhood, am I denying by not allowing her to try? But at the same time, seeing her go through the pain of all these processes and all the emotions, all the hormonal issues and stuff, you feel so helpless that you can't participate in this. And a lot of times you don't know how to, because anything that you are trying to do is probably not working, because anything you're trying to do is working against sometimes. So anyway, so that is one part of it, wherein you go through that helplessness, you want to help, but sometimes what you're doing, although with good intention, is not the right thing to do. So when I am having communication, or whenever I'm talking to any other couple who are going through this, so this is one thing that I try to tell to the men is, support as long as you can, but be strong enough to call, as Prasad mentioned, like, hey, this is the end, we need to stop, I don't want us to go through this is impacting your health. And be supportive, but at the same time be firm and kind of confident to like stop it. Is, again, that's my opinion, I'm not saying it is right or wrong, but so that's one thing that I try to tell men. The second part of it is men experiencing infertility. Unfortunately, that part of it, as Madhu mentioned, is there is no discussion about it. There is no, I don't know, support groups or anything at all. And I think that there needs to be much more awareness about it, and there needs to be much more openness about having those discussions too. And when I say openness, that doesn't mean like everyone wants to ask or discuss or anything. It is still has to be like the couple has to decide what they want to discuss or not. But men should start being open to accept that, hey, the issue, medical issue might be with them, not necessarily with just the woman. And it need not start with the woman wherein they have to kind of undergo with everything. As a couple, we have to kind of take this journey together, is what I feel.
I just want to add, like, support groups, yes, is amazing and helpful, but I feel like these conversations have to be way more normalized than speaking in those pods. And even with adult friendships, I feel like we really need to like normalize it, and we learned it from a very hard way, because the more we don't talk about it, the less people around us know about it, and they don't know how to provide support to us. So.
Yeah.
And I want to also say, Sridhar has made a very important point here about men having and women having. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because of whom you're not having a child, does it? You are a couple, you chose to be married for companionship, for love, and having a child was one of the many things that you'd like to experience being in a marriage. One of the many things, and that was an eye opener that I had from one of these sessions that we did at IPH. So it was so amazing for me to understand at that point of time, yes, actually I married him not for the sake of having a child. Having a child was one of the things, and having the experience of motherhood can come to me otherwise also. I can go through the entire susu potty baby woes. I can become a mother. And I remember I told this to my doctor at that point of time, and I was on the operation table with an epidural, hip downwards. I was being operated, and they were chatting with me. Everybody, my doctors and my this thing, everybody, all of them were having. And so she was telling the other doctor, Manjushri is going to adopt. Hey, na Manjushri, you plan to adopt? Na, I said, yeah. And we were having this kind of a talk because I was very clear. I wanted to become a mother. Prasad was clear. We wanted to become a mother and father. Now, whether that child is from my tummy or from anywhere else, it doesn't really matter. We wanted to enjoy motherhood, and we did. 18 years, 17 years, and enjoying it.
Yeah.
Thank you, for sharing that, because that also leads to the next question. Like all of you mentioned, so there are a lot of people who are going through these issues. Especially, I'm talking to the South Asian community, and it looks like there are some ways that they can feel supported, right? Like counseling, or you talked about support groups. I don't know if there are any, but there might be other ways where couples can support each other, or the husband and wife themselves can be supportive to each other. So I know that Prasad has to leave. He has to catch a train. So
Yeah.
before we go, Prasad, if you can answer these last two questions and leave, and then we can talk to others. So one is, what would you say to those who are going through similar experiences as you guys as to how they can find support? And secondly, can you tell others who have not experienced infertility issues but who have friends and family members, and how can they provide support and be sensitive to the needs of these couples?
Yeah. So the first thing that couples have to do is look within their own families. I mean, looking at the statistics, I think either their own family or an extended family member or remote cousins, distant cousins would have experienced these issues. So I think you need to talk to someone about it. We were fortunate to have people who have gone through that entire process. So look around, talk to people, talk to the family members and friends. I have one suggestion for people who want to go for IVF. Don't do it. That's my suggestion. That's the only word that I will use, because it is not a pleasant experience, and the success rate is not very good still. I mean, despite having 25 and 30 years of research, I mean, the first test tube baby in India was born 1980s. So we're about 35 years of research has gone into that area. Even today, the success rate is not even reached 50%. So which means that when you're going into IVF, there is only a 50% chance that you will conceive. So you have to really look at whether I'm sure no one will take this advice, because everyone wants to go through that process. So that was the first answer to the first question. What was the second question that you had?
So community members, family members, society in general who have children, or who don't know how to be supportive to people who are going through infertility issues.
Who have gone through a similar process.
How can we be supportive? So if we have a friend or
okay,
yeah.
Okay, I think everybody here in the society needs to be sensitized. So I think what Sridhar mentioned is very true, that it's a delicate balance between what Sridhar mentioned, whether when a husband is telling a wife, and a husband is confused or a wife is confused as to whether we should tell the spouse to stop because of the conflict. There is an inherent conflict, whether the spouse wants that advice or not. And a similar conflict would be there even within the friends and the family, that they won't know what. So in this entire process, they also need to be sensitized as to what is infertility all about. But if I were to give an advice to a friend, I would say don't do this entire process. And there's a beautiful process of adoption which is right there. It's right there in the open. So I think it's very clear that there is a lot of experimentation that has happened in the IVF field at the cost of mental, physical, and financial health of crores and crores of people, millions of people. So I think that has to stop at some point in time.
Thank you, Prasad. And if you have to leave, we understand. Thank you very much for.
Thank you. Yeah, I would need to leave. Thank you so much, Saili, for the session. I think we need more of these sessions later on, and I hope people are able to listen to these conversations with a very open mind.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
And thank you all. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Divya, I saw you nodding your head when Prasad was talking. Do you want to say something?
I do. My biggest problem is I feel like people going through infertility, and the first thing people say is, why don't you adopt? I think that has to stop. That is also, first of all, a choice. Second thing, adoption is not an easy way out for a lot of people.
Is not
an option for a lot of people.
Right. I mean, because of maybe financial barriers, maybe because of like in our case, we have struggled through the adoption process for a very long time just because we are in a different country and the visa and everything around it. It's not a simple process, and things have changed quite a bit in the adoption process, especially with COVID in the wait times, in general, the timelines of adoption are not straightforward.
Yeah, and even adopting from India is not an option. Like US citizens can adopt from India. Like a lot of white Americans can adopt from India, but Indians cannot adopt from India, which is very frustrating and very like I'm upset about that. Yes,
Yeah.
Kara has made a rule: no NRI adoption is currently available, and
Right.
it's
it's
a whole. It's not easy to say that. Oh, why don't you just adopt? It's not. So
it's not anymore, at least. And
not anymore. Agreed. I will agree because we now see it for ourselves with all the people who are adopting. Our adoption processes happened 17 years ago. So I completely agree with you, 100%, that it's not easy at all.
Yeah. I mean, there are parts of the process that were fixed, that were made more streamlined. On the other hand, there are parts of the process that have to go through multiple hoops. In general, the wait time right now apply, and
you have to prove that you're a resident.
For us, especially living in the US and trying to adopt from India, it's not even an option. It's not an
option to adopt in US or in India or anywhere for us being on visa. So either ways, whether it's an option or not, I don't think if you're trying to support a family going through infertility, I don't think saying you can adopt is not really a supportive answer that you can give to somebody. I think there are various other ways you can really support. I think even in adult friendships, when others are having babies, and be sensitive about somebody who's not or who's struggling, and show up like how you would show up to other events, right? Like when somebody loses a child, you go through a lot of sorry, I get super emotional about it, but you go through so much, like not just physically, but also mentally, right? You don't show support as much as you do when a child is born or being born. You give so much importance for the childbirth. That is very amazing, but you don't give that much emphasis for a child loss.
Yeah, I hear you.
You say things, you say like, I'm there for you, you can talk to me.
And I think it's a matter of, as Sridhar and we were speaking earlier too, it's a matter of sensitizing the society with more information, with what and how to react. I hope we get there someday, but then it's kind of difficult. And the question you asked as to what do we expect, as in if a couple is going through infertility and someone who from outside wants to support, what to expect is probably just a listening ear. Be open to listen without feeling the urge to give advice, right? Because I think from an advice standpoint, there are already multiple sources and channels which do give advice in many ways. And it also helps to normalize this talk. It does not have to be a hush topic. It does not have to be something that we can't speak about. It's like going through any other medical issue.
And it's like the way people need support in different ways. Families need support in different ways. So just ask how I can be there for you, right? Yeah. That's a very simple question that you can ask, and act on whatever that person wants. Just assuming that they need space, let's not talk about it, or just give them space to work it out, is really not just maybe good for some, but not for everyone.
Not for everyone.
Yeah, this reminds me. So this year we had another session where couples talked about losing a baby at birth or during pregnancy, and how their friends and family members react. And they expressed a similar thing. They said, when the baby is born, everybody comes and showers with all these cards and balloons and flowers. blessings. But if there's an infant death, people don't know how to react. So one couple said, many years ago, people didn't know when somebody had cancer how to go and support them, right? But now we know. Now, if somebody has a cancer diagnosis, you know how you can support them. Maybe give them food, spend time with them, do things for them, listen, as Madhu just pointed out. So that has slowly become normalized. So similarly, these issues need to be normalized, where you talk to the couple and ask what they need, rather than being judgmental, or rather than assuming you know what they need. And normalizing the situation and understanding it before we react or before we say anything is very important. Manju?
I think, Saili, what you're doing through this program is one of the best things, breaking the silence. You got to break the silence. It's like the white elephant in the room. Everybody can see it, but nobody talks about it. So either ways, we really need to be so much more mindful and aware of this. And, many a times I've felt that people are keen to say something, but they don't know what to say, so they don't say anything. I was traveling this one time in the lift, and we just shifted to Thane back then. And one lady was with me, elderly lady. And she was traveling with me up to the 6th floor, and she said, "You've come new over here?" I said, "Yeah, we just shifted about 4 or 5 months ago." So first question, she's a white-haired lady. "Married?" I said, "Huh." She said, "Children?" She's asking all of this in Hindi. I said, "She's children?" I said, "No, no, no children." So she said, "Newly married?" I said, "No, I've been married for 4 years." I said, "You don't have a child?" I said, "No, no." I said, "Oh, so sorry." So I told her, "Auntie, I am not sorry. What are you sorry for?" So, somewhere you need to also give them that education, that you don't need to pass a judgment on people not having a child. Like one of us mentioned, and one of you mentioned earlier, that these are choices. And I very rightly agree with Divya when she says that, yes, we don't need to obviously constantly give an advice about something like, why don't you have a child through adoption? It is not necessarily a choice for many people. But it's just that within couples, I think if I'm trying to understand what Prasad meant to say, was that within couples, if they're so keen to become mothers and fathers, that is an option available. But of course, I was really not aware of this fact that you guys are going through this kind of a trauma with regards to not being able to adopt. I mean, Indians not being able to adopt Indian children, that is really tough. That's challenging. I can understand.
Yep. I think we are almost there with respect to time. I just wanted to a couple of things. I echo the same thing with respect to, yes, if you want to support somebody, I think the most important thing is listen, and also ask. It's like, how can I help? What can I do to help you? And mean it when you do that. So I think those are the two important things, because every couple situation is an individual journey. And you just, even like me and Nandini going through this, I don't think we can presume we understand everything to offer something to Madhu or Divya. If they or anyone else, if they ask a specific question, yes, I can answer based on my experience and my opinion or whatever. But I don't think I should presume. Forget about people who have not gone through it. Even if you have gone through it, I don't think I should presume what the other couple is going through and make an assumption or make an advice without them asking. So I think that is most important in my mind. And having said that, I am guilty sometimes. Like, I even have that urge to kind of, because I know the people from a period of time, I kind of keep making presumptions and I still do it. So, but I should get out of that mode and make sure that I just listen. I just ask them how I can help and mean it. And just talking about not just adoption, like, in order to kind of grow your family, there are many options. And I think it is very important that there is more education about all those options and pros and cons. Maybe pros and cons is not a best way of saying it, but both sides of all those options. I think it is very important that that education becomes broadly available, or like we kind of make it broadly available, because sometimes when Prasad mentions about like, hey, don't do IVF or adopt or anything, in my mind, what I think he's trying to say is maybe some people are not making a choice because they're not aware of it. So I think it is more important that we educate people on all those choices and then leave the couple to kind of decide what works best for them. I think that's what I would like to say.
That's a perfect ending. And what all of you have said, I have been taking notes, but I can't do justice if I decide to summarize. But I can say one thing, that thank you for sharing your stories, and all your stories and experiences. People who see this program will definitely help them, and it will go a long way in helping couples, firstly, who are going through similar experiences. So hopefully they will learn from your experiences and what you had to say and your insights mainly.
Sally, can I
And
just interrupt you for a second?
yeah, yeah.
Share one little story. I know we're talking about our generation, but I want to just share one quick story. So when we were visiting India, we went to one of his relatives' house, and then they asked us, okay, why are you not having a child? You've been married for 10 years, and blah, blah, blah. So, and it's well-intentioned, and I just have fun with this. I give really uncomfortable answers, so people just, don't know how to deal with those answers. And I just walked away, and we came home and we told his mom about it.
Oh, my mom was
And-
there, or like,
Or she was there, she was
overheard it.
present at that thing. So my mother-in-law went back on another day to their house and said, this is wrong. Don't ask people whether they want to have, why they're not having a child. So I think generation wise, like, I know there are so many people wanting to be grandparents, and you put a lot of pressure on your children, but that the couple is already going through so much stress. So as grandparents, I think that's another thing that you can do to support, take that stress away from them,
Yeah, and I mean, we have been lucky, like
We've
I
had,
think
yeah.
what even Prasadan was mentioning, that we have been very lucky that our immediate family has been extremely understanding and progressive about it, and made sure that they know that they're there if you want to reach out, but has never like put the pressure. But as Divya told, I think especially I've seen this multiple times, and even Manjushri was stating the example of a elderly person making a small talk about something this deep, right? So I think it would be very educational for especially the elders in the society to understand that there are certain things that are not to be spoken or need to be more sensitive about.
Yeah, that's very important. That intergenerational conversation, right? When we are saying we have to start a conversation, it is not only between like minded people like us, because this is easy. The difficult part is talking to the older generation, or talking to even people from our generation who have some rigid ideas and are not able to think of this clearly. So, awareness,
I'm
education,
sorry.
insight is. Yes, Sridhar, go ahead.
I'm sorry. There was one topic that I just wanted to touch base on a little bit more. Manju and Prasad they have adopted a while back. Nandini and myself, we went through this adoption journey for almost 10 years. Because of what Madhu and Divya are going through right now, we were in the same situation for almost 4 or 5 years, and we looked at multiple options and figured out like we don't have an option until we become a US citizen. And the day we become the US citizen is when we started our adoption process from India. And at that, while yes, the process has become more stringent, there is more red tapeism, it's more expensive now and all that stuff. I also like to say that all of that also is helping a little bit in reducing the possibility of adoption market. I mean, people selling kids. It's kind of reducing and preventing that. So while I totally understand Madhu and Divya's frustration, we went through the same thing for a while. But while Khara is putting a lot of restrictions, and I'm very sure some of them are unreasonable and some of them can go away, but a lot of that streamlining is helping a little bit in reducing commercialization of adoption. And one thing that I would advise anyone watching this, not necessarily anyone in this panel, but anyone watching this, is when you are going through this infertility and the situation when you want to add or extend your family, have a kid in your family, it's very emotional. It seems like a lot of times it seems like it's end of the world, and so you are willing to do anything that is needed for you to kind of have a kid. I respectfully urge you to kind of, when you are looking at options, make sure that you are not taking a path which can possibly create a commercialization of this process, like be it surrogacy, be it donor egg, be it adoption. Follow the right processes, even though if there is more red tape, even though there is more expense, try and follow that. There are, at least the intent is good. Unfortunately, it is becoming more difficult, but the intent is good, so that like someone else on the other end is not suffering. I mean, just imagine a parent, their kid getting kidnapped or taken away from the hospital to sell to a parent in US just because they're willing to pay for or whatever, right? So there are two sides of it. So my request, again, respectfully, it's not that anyone is doing it, but sometimes you're not aware of what may happen just because you want to take an easy path. So
yeah, no, thank you, Sridhar, for bringing that up. I would like to say that, this topic is vast, and as some things that you have mentioned, that many people, and that's the human tendency, right? People tend to cash in on people's problems. So whether it's issues surrounding adoption where people have commercialized it, or there's the whole thing about surrogacy, right? There's this whole, we can have a whole panel discussion about what goes on and the need for it, but as well as how system makes use of that to basically commercialize the whole operation, and so many other things, infertility treatments, and a lot of other things. But since we are short on time, I think this is a very valuable beginning of a conversation, and I can't thank you all enough. So thank you very much, and I hope our audience, if they have any questions, they'll put them in the comments, and if we get a chance, we can answer them, and maybe we can come back and continue this conversation so that others can benefit. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thanks a lot.
giving us the opportunity, Sally. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Sally, for doing this, putting this together.
Thanks, AshaUSA, for